pawn structures, openings.
He certainly has, but I'm not a huge fan of what he's done with his knight on e2 today, I have to say. I mean, if we just go back around here in this opening, I was very surprised that even around here that he didn't just find a way to just go, I don't know, knight f3, for example, and put the knight on a more standard square. The knight on e2 does not make a really sort of good impression to my eyes. It's out of the game. It's being dominated by black central pawns, and I'm just wondering how he plans to get it into the game. Is he really going to play f4? This looks incredibly risky to play like this, to weaken all your dark squares. And what are you supposed to do? For example, if you jump in with a typical move like knight e4, I go back to e7, black is ready to play f5, and it doesn't feel like I've got what I would term as typical Benoni play. This knight on e2 is really causing me huge grief. David, I don't know what you think about that.
I completely agree. I love the fact that Jorden, as soon as he saw the knight land on e2, he planted his pawn on e5, and that e5 pawn does dominate the knight on e2. And this is something that I learned a lot when I started kind of experimenting with Fischer random chess. A knight is only as good as the squares it can jump to, and often knights on the second rank are dominated by pawns on the fifth rank. Likewise, knights on the third rank dominated by pawns on the sixth rank. Yeah, Magnus, he's got one bad piece, that piece you highlighted on e2. And therefore, his position does look a bit dodgy. And maybe he does need to take direct action. f4, as you say, pushing forward, breaking open the center when black has bishops. It doesn't feel right somehow. But then again, what else? I mean, it looks just as wrong to play a move like h3, g4, plant the white knight on g3, because you're giving up dark squares. Yes, white's light squared bishop is great, but you can't give up the opposing color complex, really. And therefore, we see Magnus deep in thought. He's already significantly behind on the clock, which is never a good sign. I do see in the feature chat a lot of Magnus fans, including Inort53, saying the Magnus effect will come into play at any time. It often does, but maybe this isn't the position where the Magnus effect is so relevant. Okay, he plays a rook move, it looks like, from his hand movements there. We will see rook e1 on the board. But again, where's that rook going? It's blocked by this troublesome knight on e2, this lost piece, which hasn't found yet its ideal squares. I think Magnus, hey, wow, Jorden really going for it with h5. I was going to say, I think Magnus just has a slow plan in mind, maybe moving that knight out the way, but Jorden is not going to give him that time. Going on the attack already. This is often a signal that black wants to put this pawn, clamp down on the king side, put it on h3 ideally, and Magnus loves this strategy himself. What do you think of this, Lawrence? It's looking good for you already, as far as I can tell.
I can't stand Magnus's position here, and he will also understand that this has gone actually horribly wrong for Magnus Carlson. The position is just bad. You can't, and he goes to c5 now, which a typical way to try and get some space for his pieces. But wow, he must be really upset with just how things have gone here. I mean, ultimately, let's have a look at what's going on. Black has got the two bishops. He's got space in the center, space on the king side. And okay, this move c5, he's trying to get some, but it's, again, I can't help but look at this knight on e2. This is the problem piece. Were this knight on f3, the whole position would be different, because there'd be pressure against the e5 pawn. You could maneuver both knights to these c4 and e4 squares. You could actually sort of put together some play. But the fact that they are both unable to get there at the moment because of this knight, I'm very skeptical. I won't say that Magnus is lost here, but he must be a lot worse, surely. I don't see any really seriously positive elements to his position. Okay, rook c1. And now,
Lawrence, I've got to say I completely agree. There is a lot of messages in the feature chat, though, saying yes, it's a Benoni, so it will look bad, but maybe long-term activity. There was also a message saying